Welcome to my presentation. Um, Thanks everyone for joining. Um, my presentation is called Playing the Game. It's all about maximizing information and eliminating all the gray area. And this is us. We're the little hero down here, so we're always the hero. But first, my player profile. So I'm from Michigan, worked fully remote for Price Modern. That's my castle. My princesses, my two daughters, Sawyer and Clarky, and my noble steed is my dog Fitz. He's very small. He's a little 13-pound munchkin. And then, like I was talking about earlier, my side quests. So I recently endeavored to start an Etsy shop for some reason. I'm not quite sure. Inspired by Alexandra and her merch store. So getting that up and running. It's my shirt. So first off, don't freak out. There's a lot of stuff in this presentation, and it might seem like there's no way you could do this on every single project. But I got the cheat codes to make it easy, make it helpful. And I'll show you ways to do this quick and efficient so that you don't have to, waste your entire life on all of these details, because there are a lot of them. So first off, what is the number one reason for errors on a project? Feel free to shout them out. Anybody?
Communication.
Communication, yes. So, and that goes every direction. Communication from the client to the salesperson, from sales to the designer, from the architect to the GC, from us to the project manager. I mean, communication is so key, and so many of those details get lost. And we get to the end of the project and everyone has questions of, that's not what I thought it was. So I'm going to show you a bunch of different ways to incorporate that into your drawing packages so that there's nothing left up for, discussion. Everybody knows what's going on. So first off, who's your team and what do they need? So our number one teammate is, of course, the client, because that's who we always want to make happy at the end of the day. We want to keep their faith in us, and we hope that they're going to bring us future business. And what do they need to know? They need to know what our finished selections are, what the product details are, and what to expect from the project. We have our architect. What they need to know from us is, what are the electrical requirements? What are the codes and clearances, elevations, things that interact with the millwork of things that they're designing. So it's, while they plan everything out with placeholder blocks and things like that, they're really relying on us to have the final, fit and finish of the selections of the design. For the GC, now we don't always sometimes I think we forget about communicating with the GC, but it's so important because they're building the space that our stuff needs to fit into. And the way that our product works with what they're building is super critical. They need to know the whole 2 dimensions to make sure that your stuff fits within, your booths fit within a nook, electrical placement so that you're, behind that height adjustable desk, there's a place to plug all those cords in and that little baby window. And then blocking. Blocking is a big one that everybody, we kind of glaze over, but it can actually lead to voiding warranty on certain products if it's not installed correctly. You don't want an overhead falling on somebody. And last, but maybe most important, in my opinion, is our project manager. They're the ones that are going to execute all of the hard work that we've done on the upfront. And if we don't properly communicate with them, then it doesn't really matter how good of a job we did at the beginning if when it's installed, it doesn't look good or it's not done right. But that they rely on us for all of that. So they need to know phasing, lead times, and tagging so that everything arrives to site. We're not paying for extra trips, things like that. And remember, all of these people are allies. They're not our enemies, and they can easily fall into that, but I'll show you how to keep that from happening. Okay, we're ready to go. Let's start our journey with our lovely little team here. First things first, what's it going to look like? So the client selected everything. How do you know that you understood your client? So we bring them in. So we're going to level up all of our info. When we do our typical sheets, you want to have, detailed dimensions, elevations, the finish swatches, all of your renderings with callouts of specifically what they are. Some people get really detailed into those if, like by calling out the manufacturer, the product name, and all of those things. A lot of clients don't really understand that. They don't know the difference between a fern chair and a poppy chair or an Aeron. They don't know the difference between those things. They just want to know what it does. So I always put in here exactly how many receptacles they're going to get, what their power module has in it, USB-A, USB-C, things like that, that actually they can understand and read. Try not to make it too jargony. They don't know what a BBF is, box file. They want to know that it's a pedestal with, 3 drawers, things like that. And the other big thing, seat height elevations. So I do this for clients and for architects because a lot of time they're building millwork and sometimes they don't give us those construction sets, and we want to give them this, be like, hey, this is the set, this is the height of the chair that you're ordering. Is it going to fit? And power up bonus points. When putting the finishes in, if you include the finish codes, it makes it a lot easier, not only for your spec checker to confirm that those finish codes correspond with your SIF, because with a lot of specials and those manually entered finish codes, it's really easy to slip up and transpose 2 letters, and then you got a completely different fabric on a tack board or something. But also it's helpful for install because they don't know the difference between this wood grain laminate or this wood grain laminate. It could be, they don't know that kind of stuff, but the product will have a finish code on it. So if they're that detailed, which some are, it's just a good double check. Definitely doesn't hurt. So this is one of the cheat codes that I wanted to show with the finish swatches. A lot of people have said to me, like, oh my gosh, all these finish swatches, all of this detail, like it's so much to type out and, it's so much information to do. So one of the helpful things is here in CET, if you go up to your tools tab, right here is this little friend. And what you're able to do with this is, so like say I wanted to change this text, but I didn't want to like open up this whole text box. So like say if I have a text box and I don't want to have to double click in each one of these to change it, right? Because that is like this whole text box thing is kind of annoying. So if you click on this little friend right here and you click on this, it opens up a short text here. So hello. And then we hit the next and oh, no, it just says hell, sorry. But you're able to jump quickly from text box to text box, which is super helpful when you're editing all of those different texts. Back to our presentation. Also super helpful when you do this kind of stuff, group and arrange them with quick keys for align. I'll show that at the end what my standard quick keys are to help quickly align and like left align, right align, up, down, things like that, that you can do it quick without having to go into that whole dialog box, which is kind of, and just an extra step, anything to save you clicks. So here's our first boss battle. So the angry client shows up. This is when everything shows up on site. Client goes for a walkthrough and they're like, this isn't the color that I picked. Well, you got a shield for that. You pull up your sign-off sheet with all of those finish codes. We're like, yep, it's right here. You signed off on this. If you want us to change the color, that'll be an additional cost. Or this table size is wrong. Well, if you see my dimensions, it clearly shows this is a 30 by 72, not a 24. So all of that information really saves you in the end. It puts a little bit more responsibility on the client rather than just willy-nilly signing off on something. It holds them accountable for their portion, for them pulling their own weight in the project too. Remember, if you clearly communicate up front, the client will be your ally, not your enemy. That's the whole goal here. Keep our team happy. And look, we got another heart. Yay, and kept all our money. Okay, next. How was it intended? So the client's happy, furniture's approved. Now, how do we know that it all works? We're gonna bring in the architect. So remember, think back to the stuff that we said that the architect needs to know. They need to understand how our product interacts with the architecture that they're planning and designing. So like I said, seat heights. super important because you always know that there's an architect out there that's going to give you, oh, this is a counter height. Well, okay, but you also put a 4-inch top on it and now your legs are squished or your arms are all the way up here and you look like a kid at the, at the little kids table. Codes and clearances. So while that is big into their responsibility, they don't actually know what the final sizing of the furniture is. So we want to be able to provide those so that they understand, hey, it's up to us to tell them that if something's not compliant. Another thing that we do is when you plan for your cores, we want to share that information with them because they've probably already sent this out to bid and maybe they only plan for 1 core in this conference room or this training room. And really we need 2. So that's something for us to help them when budgeting so that they don't get stuck with a change order. So our cheat codes on this is our categorizations. So a lot of this stuff can be done really quickly by setting up a really good template drawing, by having everything categorized at the very beginning. So what I do is I make custom categories. So, and you'll see here that I have all these custom categories. So with these dimensions, I've set them to be on a hold to layer, and then I take off. So in a normal dimension, it automatically, puts it on this CET dimension. Now, if I want this to be a hold to dimension, I click on hold to and I turn off the dimensioning. What this allows me to do is that if I go to like my electrical only layer, all these will show up. But if I go to a non-texted layer, they all disappear. So it keeps your drawing nice and clean. Same thing with my electrical symbols. So I'll put these on my electrical, my custom electrical layer so that I can see them, but I can turn them off in different views in my paper space. Kind of think of this like CAD. That's always been my biggest complaint about CET is that it doesn't have like the way that layers work in CAD, it doesn't translate very good to CET. So this is kind of like a workaround to make it feel more like CAD and make your life a little bit easier. But with putting everything on categorization level layers, it will allow you to put the maximum amount of information in your drawing without adding a whole bunch of busyness that's happening. You want it to still be nice and clean for the client, for you, but still get all that, be able to have all that information in one space. I've also included, these are categorized based on if like these are my electrical blocks, these are for my elevations. So you're able to do one elevation and overlay this information and be able to turn it on and off. But I'll show you that a little bit later. And we already went to CET. I just need to remove that slide. So here's your boss battle with the angry architect. So we get on site and they're like, well, we only budgeted for 1 core, not 2. Like I said, they get mad about that because they hate change orders just as much as we do. Well, that's why we showed it on the plan. This isn't to code. Well, all the codes were represented on the drawing and I told you about this. We talked about it. It's clearly denoted that these boxes are representing building codes, 88 codes. So we showed you that. And everybody's favorite, the stool, you ordered the stools, bar height, and this is counter height. I would say number 1 error in our entire industry is ordering the wrong height stools. And sometimes it's not always our fault. Sometimes someone will tell us it's counter and it's not. That's why we put those elevations in there so that they can see this is what height it is. Do you approve this seat height? And you get some weird ones that are like right in between. I definitely like red box those ones. I'm like, you tell me that you're cool with this because I'm not sure. But yay, they're happy. We got our heart back because we communicated perfectly and we didn't have any errors. So what's next for our hero? How will it be built? So architect's happy, the conditions are approved. Now, how do we make sure that it's built the right way? Going up into the clouds. Maybe. Oh, we're still climbing, not there yet. Okay. So when working with a GC, we need to remember that they have a lot more going on than just furniture. we think a lot of the time that they're looking at our whole design package, when in reality, they have an entire architectural set that they're trying to build off of. And it's, it's a lot for them to look at. A lot of them don't necessarily understand furniture, and really they shouldn't have to. They should just understand the information that we need from them, which typically comes in the form of electrical, blocking, and hold tos, which can ruin basically an entire job if you don't do it correctly. So what I do is I'll provide electrical windows. So a lot of the time, especially when you're coring a floor, if you have old historic buildings or you don't know if there's rebar on the floor and you give them an exact location of where you need that core to be, they'll measure it, they'll scan the floor, and they'll be like, oh, well, I can't core right there. Give me another option. And then they're going to have to go back and scan that next option. They're going to go back and scan. And it just makes a headache for everyone. You end up doing a million electrical plans. They end up scanning a million times. So what I'll do is I'll give basically a block on the floor. I'll give an opening on the floor of saying like, hey, this is where you can core and it works. Our cheat code for this one is our visibilities. Like I was saying earlier, you want to be able to have this on multiple different layers. So if I'll go to a real project, show you maybe. See, he's been extra slow lately. I'll give that a second to think. So with our categorizations, you want to have, like I was talking about with your electrical and your symbols, on a separate layer so you could turn everything on and off. You want to use the black and white filter in paper space. If this is gonna, maybe this is gonna move. Oh, it's already open, sweet. So you'll see in this drawing, I have all of these, it's kind of looks like a pretty messy drawing, to be honest, because there's just so much going on. There's electrical, all this other stuff. But because of our visibilities, when we send this out, so if I go to my hold to an electrical, maybe. Oh, it's trying real hard. I think this is why I'm going to do videos instead of actually using CET, because it hasn't been the fastest lately. There we go. Maybe. Okay. So basically what I've done is I've taken, I've changed the visibilities on this viewport and have it so just that the electrical is turned on and is in red. There it goes. Baby steps here, fam. But this is the information, this is really the only information that the GC needs to know. They want to know exactly where the cores go. They want to know where your windows are for the electrical. You can put your height, and then they need to know your whole 2 dimensions. Yes, you can put this on a drawing in black and white, but it's a lot more helpful if you turn this on. So basically, and this is a little backwards in my opinion, but with these layers that I have, if you turn the eyeball on, that actually means you're making it black and white. So think about you're turning on the black and white. If you wanted to turn it off, it should be backwards in my opinion. If I want to see the color, I want to turn the eyeball, but you're able to turn those colors on and off based on what you want them to see. And then again, with the visibilities, because we put those on their own separate layer, we're able to make that a feature of the visibility itself. And again, put it all on one sheet. Like, don't assume that the GC is going to read your entire drawing package. This is all they care about. If they have to go digging for it, they might miss it. So give this one sheet. I usually do 2 sheets. I'll do one with the electrical, and then I'll do one with the furniture and the electrical overlaid without any text on the furniture, just so they can see what they're actually dealing with. Is this going in a conference, like a column base in a conference room? Or is this, just something that's going to be out in the open? It'll help them kind of think about how they're going to, if they have to cut whips down, things like that. It's always good to just keep them, give them just as much information as they need. Don't make them search for it. And I'm going to delete that. Okay. So our boss battle, this is always, like, in my opinion, this is the worst one, because when a GC gets mad at you, they get mad at you. You don't want to have that conversation. So first thing, well, your furniture doesn't fit. Well, I had a hold to there, so I'm going to need you to rebuild that, or, you know, we're going to have a change order where you're going to have to assist us in paying for the new furniture that doesn't fit. I told you how big it needed to be. You just asked for blocking, so I put it wherever. This actually happened to me and it blew my mind. I asked for blocking in the wall and they're like, yep, no problem. I have it in an email. Well, they put blocking in the wall, but they put it from the floor to 30 inches. I don't have an overhead that I need at 30 inches. It's all the way up here. And they had to tear open all the walls and put blocking in them. It was awful. And then, well, I didn't know you needed power there. I was like, well, yeah, you did, because I put bright red symbols with bright red dimensions. Can't miss them. This is a big one, especially with how complex private offices are getting these days, and those windows of where you can plug something in or where you can run wires is getting smaller and smaller. So it's really good to show that elevation of the blocking window. So I usually put that right on my electrical sheet. And like I said before, with these, if you turn off, so like if you turn on, there you go. So you can get a regular, if you do a non-texted regular elevation, one with dimensions, or if you do, I have a separate visibility that's just for the blocking and electrical elevations. So that stuff doesn't get overlapped. It's very clear. You can put your regular elevations on your typical pages, then you can put your blocking and electrical on this one. Yes, this is intended to be up here. They were mounting a monitor. I thought it was weird too, but I didn't know that originally. And they're like, well, we don't need one down here. We need it up here. And because I had this, it started the conversation, opened us up to make some better decisions. And yes, we're falling from a cloud and everything's on fire, but we're happy. Okay, so last and maybe most important, how is it going to be executed? So GC is still on our team. The site is correct. Everything fits. It's going to be perfect. But how do we know that it's going to deliver? Woo! I'm bringing my favorite person, the project manager. So we're going to level up our info. So a lot, project managers have to deal with a lot. And a lot of the times we don't bring them in on the project early enough for them to know what's really going on. So they end up on site with a bunch of product, maybe not even tagged, don't know where it's going. And they're calling you constantly and being like, just asking a million questions. You can solve all of that, first of all, with a pre-install meeting, which I think is mandatory. But if you provide all this information on the drawing package, very clear and concise, they're not going to be asking you as many questions. So the big one is accessories. It's easy to look at a plan and say, okay, that's a private office, that's a workstation. But then they'll get all of these, little task lights, or like pencil cups, or trays, or, different wire management. They don't have any idea where that's going to go. And the worst thing that can happen is that, say only the private offices got fancy little task lights. Well, if they put one on someone's workstation, then that person's going to get pissed because, oh, well, those people got something that I didn't get. Really don't want that to happen. It's a tough conversation for the client. It's a tough conversation for us. So what I do is I actually make a spreadsheet and call out of, on this project, I had certain things had wire management mesh, certain ones I wanted white, the other ones I wanted black based on the, the leg style. There was different power options for different tables, different offices, things like that. So detailing all of that out, along with including like field cuts, that helps the project manager understand where all of that stuff goes, and you don't have to go out to site and place all of it, which I'm sure we've all done. Centerline dimensioning. I think this is another big thing that we forget a lot, where, we'll give dimensions, from edge to edge of two tables. Well, that's not how they're built. So it's really hard for a project manager or an installer to line that stuff up without a center line. Again, we categorize this so we can make it go away and only show up when we need it. The other, this is actually probably my favorite thing, is I'm kind of obsessed with tagging, like the color-coded tagging. I'm I probably take it a little bit too far, but I love it because it communicates so much. So you can communicate like long lead time items. This is a great one to communicate to clients too, so that they see like, okay, all of this is coming, but these like 5 fancy chairs from Europe aren't going to be here for, 3 months. So it doesn't force you to have the hard conversation with your project manager or with your client of being like, hey, where are these chairs? In your your PM or your installer, they're not going to be running around looking for that item if it's clearly noted on your plan, hey, this is going to be late. Yes, I did this right this time. Okay. So with the color-coded tagging, so this is one way that I've done it. I mean, as you know, we have our social spaces team, which handles all the ancillary furniture, and then I'll handle all the primary systems and Hayworth furniture. So it's good internally for me to communicate if this ever loads. This is sad. So it's good for me to be able to communicate to my internal team what scope I'm covering and what scope they're covering, because there is some like overlap. While they do ancillary and social spaces, that might include some chairs. Maybe those chairs got switched to Hayworth, so is it in my scope or is it in their scope? This is really helpful with the color coding to be like, hey, first of all, this is what I'm covering on my spec. This is what you're covering, but also for your project manager, because your PM is going to also be tracking shipments and deliveries that are coming from different companies. So if they're planning on a delivery to site of all one manufacturer, they know exactly what they're going to get. They know the quantity of the product, and then they're able to, set crews appropriately or set appropriate amount of time on site to install this shipment. It just helps communicate to everyone of what's coming from where. What else was in that one? Oh, yeah. Wanted to show my electrical. So with these spreadsheets, you just make a normal Excel spreadsheet, and over here where it says sheet, you put this in just like a normal picture, like a normal image, and my gosh, this is so slow. And you're able to drop this in, load in your spreadsheet, and you're just able to update it like you normally would. You click on it, there's like a little refresh button at the bottom, maybe. Oh, no, now it's placing something, and it's placing one again. Wow. And now it's deleting things. Doing good today, CET. Okay, there we go. So you're able to filter from the rows and the columns. So these two spreadsheets are actually in the same spreadsheet, but I'm able to filter these. Say you need to make an update to your Excel. If you just make your update, save it, and hit refresh data, it'll update everything that's in this table. You might have to play with the rows and everything again, but it's, it's still really nice. See here, I hit refresh and it pulled both of them. So if I do to row 7, oops, wasn't that one, was this one. There, you can see it cuts it back down. I also use this with, at least with our manufacturer, linear mesh comes in linear feet, so you can't select a certain size. So I'll figure out how many stations I have, how many feet of wire management mesh do I want. This does all the math for me. I mean, I went to art school, math not my strong suit, so this helps me figure it all out. And also, like I said, I had white that I wanted, and some of them I wanted black, so I was able to calculate exactly how many feet that I needed. Okay, boss battle. What do I do with this? It's the worst question to get, and you can, if you don't set it up good, you're going to get a lot of them, because every item that comes off that truck, they're going to be like, what do I do with this? And you don't want to deal with all those calls. Makes their life difficult, makes our life difficult. So your panels don't line up. Well, because we had the center lines on the drawing, you're not even going to get the call about that, because everything's going to be where it needs to be, and you're not going to have a whole pack of installers trying to shift a 6-pack foot. That's always the worst, and then you ruin the carpet. Yeah, whole mess. Where do these accessories go? Well, please reference my spreadsheet for colors and quantities. None of your lounge furniture arrived. Yep, those are actually on phase 2. You can see it on my highlighted plan. So you're going to avoid all those questions, which are always, stop your day and then you're investigating and yeah, solve all that stuff up front. Yay! Max hearts. We're happy. We got money in the bank. But how do we do it all? I told you not to freak out. I know it seems like a whole bunch. Your drawing's going to feel like it's a mess. But like I said, I got the cheat codes. Bring in our hero. That's us. So we're going to level up your drawing. Like I said before, we're going to set up our template drawing with everything that's already categorized to what it is when you want to see it. One of the other things that I do, because dimensions don't rotate nicely, which is kind of a pain in the butt. So, and that's like really the only issue with this. One of my favorite features that I just recently found out after 10 years using CET from my very first design pop video that I watched changed my life. So copy with a base point. The fact that I didn't know this blows my mind. But for me, I don't even know where the actual tool is, but I just changed it on my key bindings. I use C. So it brings up like this little crosshair. And so say I want to place this electrical dimension in every room. So what it'll do is it'll snap to the middle of whatever you're picking first for some reason. So you do that, and then you pick the edge that you want to copy it from. So what I'll do is I'll place all of my electrical, and then I'll go through and just drop this on every corner, not necessarily resize it. I drop them all first. And then, so say I put my, nope, don't do that. Don't do that. I want this right. Yeah, this is so painful. So if I want this electrical window, I'm going to position it here. And then I've created view tabs. I might be getting ahead of myself in this presentation, which mimic your visibilities that you're going to see in your paper space. So that really busy kind of crazy drawing that you had, you don't have to worry about messing any of that stuff up. It's just going to show you the electrical, and then I'll come in after I place all of these, I'll resize them to fit where I need them to be. But the other thing that I do, because it's always been a hot point of contention of, do you do electrical in CET or do you do it in CAD? My goal is to take absolutely everything into CET. But it's always nervous, like, oh, are you going to move, like accidentally move one of your cores? So what I'll do is I'll go to my electrical tab. I'll select everything, maybe CET. I'll select all of everything, which will technically only grab the electrical, and I'll lock all of it. So that when I'm moving something around, I'm not going to accidentally grab a core and drag it into the other room, and then there's a core in the wrong spot. And then the other thing that I do is I have pre-made tags that are already color-coded and ready to go. So if I open my part tagging, actually, I'll go back to this one. So in my part tagging, I have these set up that just say A, B, C, D, and because you don't know if your client's going to use like a CH or just a, TC for task chair. You don't know what their tagging convention is going to be. So setting it all up ahead of time might just kind of bite you in the butt. So basically if you add your CH here, and then you just click new tag, new tag, new tag, it counts them up for you so that you're not retyping all of that mess. Makes it a little bit easier, but they're already in there. They're already color coded. I also have a status column that necessarily isn't going to sift out, but in a lot of your drawing, I mean, pretty much in everybody's drawing, you're going to have a bunch of random stuff hanging off to the side that you don't want to sift out, like my elevations, things like that. We don't want that to sift out. So I'll use my status tag and select approved and take it and put it just around the scope of my project so that it's really easy to filter in calculations, and you're only going to get what you need and not have a bunch of other random stuff show up. Yes, cheat codes in this, drawing templates and the custom views. So if you guys aren't familiar with custom views, they, like I said, they work just like your visibilities in Paperspace. So if you come down this little arrow and hit edit, you can select what is showing down here. So I prefer to have one that's completely non-texted, just furniture, nothing else. Then I have one that shows all of the tags. So you'll see that all of my blocks have tags in them. So for if I go to the all non-texted, all of that disappears. If I do the tags, it has it. But this is also a really good way to preview what's going to show up in your Paperspace. So like for a centerline drawing, this is exactly what's going to show up. It helps you check to make sure that everything's in your drawing that you need for that Paperspace without having to bounce back and forth. For your spec checks, if it would load, this would have all your panels and electrical on it. Oh, it's because there's no panels down there. So this will have all of your electrical and your panels on it. For your components, it'll make sure that you have the right text on everything so that there's no confusion. And then, like I said, a blocking and electrical with just simple furniture outlines. And then obviously Paperspace is set in here, all ready to go. The three that I always have is I have an overall, I have my color coded plan, and then I have my hold to and electrical that already have all the visibilities on them. There's no confusion. There's really not a lot of editing either. I just open up that Paperspace and we're good to go. Okay, nearing the end here. So I wanted to share some of my keyboard cheat codes. So the big one for me is I reassigned these 6 right here to be my alignment keys. So think of U as up and then everything else kind of just follows like normal arrow keys. I also use the Y and the I to distribute horizontally and vertically. I's obviously vertically. But what that allows me to do is, so a lot of manufacturers have those finished swatches that automatically populate. But they come in like really random. These ones, of course, came in nicely, but say I didn't have space for this. So I'm able to say if I wanted them all to be up and down, I'll just drag this down here, select all of them. If I hit H, and then if I hit I, they all distribute exactly like I need them to. Obviously, I need a little bit more, but you're really easily able to, if I group this one and I group this one, beautiful. So it makes it really easy to align things, like things like chairs too, like around a conference table, things like that. Makes it super easy. I'm a big keyboard person, probably from my many years of gaming. If you can't tell from my presentation, I'm kind of a nerd. But so I hate going into the drop-down menus to get things. Like I go into part tagging, I go into categorizations all the time. Copy with a base point, my best friend. I hate finding those buttons everywhere because they're so small. They all look the same. I don't know what any of them do. So I have part tagging as Q, categorization as E, and position as R, because your hands basically live right on that side your hand lives on that side of the keyboard anyway. So it's a real easy transition. And yay, mission accomplished. We saved the princess, made it to the castle, and we're rolling in all the money because we didn't have any change orders. We didn't have any errors. So, and claim your CEU if you'd like. Does anybody have questions? Feedback? Thoughts? Silence?
This is amazing. Sid,
I love this
you've
so
outdone
much.
yourself.
No, it's really good.
I love it.
It was awesome.
I'll be
Sydney.
honest. I'll probably go back and watch the video again because
Me too.
there's a lot of information, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay, I need to know that.
Yeah, it. Once I go down like the rabbit hole, I'm like, okay, when do I stop? It's like so much, and like the videos are great and everything, but sometimes I think I'm still gonna make a handout because I'm terrible at going back and watching the videos. But if it's on a piece of paper, I'll read it. Is
I
there
did have
anything?
one question. The little text tool that you showed at the very beginning, when you
Mhm.
were like changing through the boxes, is that like, are you shifting Does it
Yeah,
automatically
you just-
go
you
to the
just-
next box?
You just hit tab.
Okay, okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's super helpful. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but at one point these lovely little things broke and all the text, like if you had manually applied text in here, they broke. That's my fault. I will take the blame. But I had to go back through my entire Franklin Templeton drawing, which had thousands of finishes, and retype all of these. So it was a nightmare.
Painful.
But this little dude saved my life, because it was just, you were just able to jump from one to the other really quick. And also, if you're not using the position tool, it took me way too long to realize, because that tool sucked at the beginning when we first like started using it. It was glitchy. It didn't work at all, but it's so much better now, and you can quickly put stuff in the right spot like you can in CAD. You're not like hovering it. Okay, this is close to the wall. Like I hate that stuff. Any other questions, suggestions? Thoughts?
No, it's a lot of information, which is really good. Really good.
Good. I appreciate that, because I never know if I'm like, am I just teaching a bunch of stuff everybody knows? I don't know.
No, I think
Okay.
No.
I think you have a good span of beginner to advanced to refresh.
Okay,
I think it's
perfect.
a lot of things people know, but putting it all together, like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
seeing how it actually works in a project, I think is really great and like relatable to actually have what you've learned and actually apply it to what we're doing every day, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I mean, that's super helpful.
And Sydney, I think the theme is really fun, and I think it keeps people engaged.
Thanks. Yeah, I went a
Yeah.
little bit Canva crazy.
It's
It's
cute.
perfect.
I love it.
I
But
think
also-
how you stop at the end of each like topic too to kind of do a recap is really helpful in making like real life problems.
Yeah.
And
mhm.
I like when you're in CET and showing us. I think it's kind of better than a video, and
Yeah.
you're, it's like real life training, but you have it all set up. So, as much as you can try to, get the program where it needs to be.
So that's kind of my, I guess, if I'm like asking feedback. A part of me was thinking like, so I'll have one drawing that's completely done to just show like full
Mhm.
scope of how, like, what it can look like. But I was thinking of getting one that's just like a really small space that just has furniture in it, and you're like, I'm like actually going to apply some of this stuff. Like, do you think that'd be helpful? I mean, and if it's a small drawing, I think it'll move faster.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think it's a good plan, so you can toggle if you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
this one's good to have like because you're showing like the images from this plan, but I think to have it like also like in a smaller
Yeah.
one, I think will move. And I agree. I think in this instance, I think like I've done videos before for presentations, but
Yeah.
this one it's so like it's nice to see you doing it
Mhm.
physically in
Mhm.
in
The
CT. So I
process.
would say a smaller one to see if it moves faster would be I think a
Mhm.
great idea. So
But
Well, and I
also,
got-
this is a great
Yeah.
opportunity to be like, hey, CET, make this work,
Yeah,
please.
exactly.
Yeah, we try not to badmouth the person putting on the conference, but just call it like I see it.
experience every day, right? So we totally
Yeah.
get it. So and you're at 9:47, and this is like feedback for the last like 5 minutes, right? So I think you're
Yeah.
putting in your time slot just fine, and you did have like slowness, right? So I don't think that you're gonna have a problem with a few of the lagging, because like we all get it, right? And that's a point where we all can laugh together, because it's like
Yeah.
this is every day. This is every day. So
For sure. Well, thank you guys so much for sitting in. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the feedback too. This is always like a daunting task to get all this stuff done, but it's super, like, being able to run through and all you guys jumping on when I know how busy you are. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
my
you.
Thank
I
you.
will,
Yes.
I will
Can't
repay
wait to
you in,
fangirl.
yeah, I will repay you in super cute designery stickers that I'm making for my Etsy shop.
Yes, please.
I have lots. So, okay. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good luck.
Thanks,
Good
Sid.
job.
Bye.
Bye.